Warm welcome to this session of our very own, I would say, a place where we can speak out our hearts. That's the place of ZIPINAR. So our very own, let us talk it, ZIPINAR. And we had an exciting event last night. For me personally, it was for the first time that I had enjoyed Women's Day in my entire life. So it was a big thing with all the wonderful women. They participated, and what we decided on that we will continue this because every new beginning has a miracle in itself. And we think that with empowering a woman with a new woman entrepreneur with a check of $100,000 and to get her started on her way was a great achievement on our Let Us Talk It platform. And with that, we continue. We do not want to stop. As we have continued our Let Us Talk It journey from 2019. We want to continue the women entrepreneurship spirit. And we have two wonderful women today as well joining us. And they will be talking about Break the Bias, whatever the talk about in the society or whatever is going on. We'll have an interactive session. We have two powerful women, but they are powerful when we make them get the best out of them. So then we will know what is their real power. So for that, whoever has joined on YouTube or Facebook, please, if you could join the Zoom link, it would be really appreciated. So first, we have Sandhya Pillai, and the next speaker will be Riti Kapoor Chopra. And for Sandhya, she is a leading executive communication coach and a communication strategist. Nothing in this world is as important as communication. You break the bias, you be a path breaker or a path maker, whatever it is. If your point is not there out in the world, nothing will really work. So she has coached more than 5,000 professionals to become effective leaders and influencers. And she is the founder of Drishtikon, a leading personal development initiative for women entrepreneurs. And with that, her topic would be to take action in a gender equal world. And then we will be having Riti Kapoor Chopra, but we'll have this as an interaction session. So anybody, if you have any question, you can write it in the chat. That will be easier. And then we'll take the session ahead. Yeah. So first with Sandhya, absolute honor to have you both on this show, our Women Day special show. So over to you, Sandhya.
Thank you, Jillian. Thank you for introducing. And hi, Riti. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you. Hi, Phil. I'm wondering if we can have videos on, Jillian. That makes it slightly more interactive. I believe in communication in all formats, which means body language is also important for me.
I can ask everybody to have their video on except myself. Yep. But yeah, please, if anybody can, it would be great.
Sheetal, Shri, Rekha, Sharta, Madhavi, Manmohan, Geeta, if you could have your videos up, it would make it more interactive. Otherwise, I'm feeling that I'm actually talking to walls and not women or men. So please have your videos on.
Sandhya?
So Vamshi, will you be able to have your videos on being attendees?
I don't see the option of switching on the video. I have only the chat option available and the audio. I don't see the video option.
Okay. Can we? Yeah.
Same for me too, Julian.
Oh, so we don't have a video option for them at all?
Vamshi, can we make them panelists, please? Quick.
Yeah, I'm transferring them.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. While I think that technical thing is being sorted, Sharda, I think you've raised your hands. Is there a question or you wanted to talk about the video setting as well?
Can I use this background? So, yeah.
I cannot put my video. The reason is my laptop is in the down and my screens are up. So my monitors, and then my monitors don't have camera.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, can we do it for Sheetal, Shrirekha, Madhavi, Manmohan, and Geeta, please? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. So my question to each one of you here is, when have you noticed a gender bias? If you have actually noticed or any bias, let's just forget the gender bias. I think Women's Day is already over for us in India, but what is the bias that you've noticed? Or can you just put it on chat? I think chat option should be available, Julian. Is that available for them?
Yes, for everyone.
Okay, perfect. So just say a yes or no. That's good enough for me to know you have faced some bias or stereotype while you were working or in your personal life. You don't have to share that, but you can just let me know a yes or no, or show me a thumbs up. I think that makes it interactive.
Yes.
Okay, Phil says yes. Who else? Sarta says yes. Okay.
I say yes. I'm starting to figure out the chat. Okay, I see it.
Yeah. Yes and no, Madhavi. Yes and no is kind of tricky. So what does that mean? Shrirekha, waiting for your answers. Yes. Okay.
I'm just thinking
whether and no.
Hello,
Shrirekha,
can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
I'm just thinking whether I faced any bias. So it's so all pervading that you don't know whether that is bias or that's respect for women, or that's the issue we face. So yeah.
Yeah, so let me then ask an interesting question, and Riti, you could also add in here. So do you actually think human beings don't have bias? What do you think? Do you think human beings have bias?
We do have bias for everything, not necessarily women. So
yeah, we humans have this
even for our children. Even for our children, definitely.
Absolutely. So we have biases since the time we are born. Some biases are innate because we get conditioned in that kind of family setting, or maybe it goes from lifetime kind of conditioning from schools, colleges. We pick it up on the way. We don't realize it. It's called unconscious bias. We don't realize it, right? So something very simple for me is, I was raised with this thought process that women, or specifically girls, because we were two girls in the family at that time, I was told that you're not supposed to step out. It's not very safe. Not because I was a girl. It was just because the place that we lived in, it wasn't safe for anybody to be out in the dark. For the longest time, even when I moved to college and I started living in the hostel, night time was dreading for me. Any opportunity, any college event that happened in the night, that bias was there in my head that it's not safe. The instinct was your protection, your barriers, everything would come up the moment anyone would say there is an event in the evening. I'd be like, sorry guys, I'm not there for the music concert. Doesn't sound like me. I can't do it. Right? Very simple. It's not a bias that's impacting anyone. It's not a bias that's hurting anyone, but it's an unconscious bias that's impacting my behavior. Correct? Now, my question to you is, Shrirekha, now can you relate to any bias that you remember of? So let's skip the gender bias. We've talked enough about gender biases, but there are other subtle biases that are dangerous, actually, to be precise. Gender bias is something which is very visible, so you can still counter it. But there are certain biases you can't even figure out unless and until you got hurt by it, or over a period of time you see the change, right? So now can you think of it, Shrirekha? Let's just try and think of anything that you remember of.
Okay. There are biases, as I said, inherent, and which has developed over a period of time. But yeah, as you said, going out in the night, not just for me, but even for the male members of my family, generally we do avoid because of being present in a certain locality or anything. And then I haven't faced as such too much, because I've grown in an environment where thankfully people have been very supportive of girls as well. So that way I haven't, but probably when we change, when we come to a different environment, we might see that. Yeah, there's not, I'm a South Indian, so there's a South North bias always. People, it's not it's not on your face. People are very subtle, but then there is a certain amount of bias wherein food. Let's take food. So people are like, oh, this is idli you make daily on a daily basis. No, that is the kind of question we get. Obviously, I mean that is our staple food, so we make. Similarly, we can question the North Indian saying that, do you make chapati on a daily basis? So that kind of thing, we are also biased, they're also biased. So there's this subtle bias. Food is a major thing that I've seen. And then there's obviously this north-south bias. And yeah, when we change places, we see that kind of thing, which is, hitting you. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a Keralite myself, lived mostly in Delhi. So of course I know that bias. And for me, it was slightly different. Initially, I didn't know to make really crispy doshas, right? I was used to some typical type of doshas and I didn't know that. And my first question my friends would ask is, you're a South Indian, don't you know how to make South Indian food? And that was a bias, right? That was a completely contrast bias that I would get because I've lived mostly in the north, not because of that, because I learned cooking late in my life, right? So that was a reason. Reason was not north and south. It was just that I learned cooking late and I never picked up that art. Brilliant. Now, my question to all of you here is, so if you have identified bias, right? Phil, you said that there is bias that you faced, right? When have you identified? And if you have, what have you done about it? Have you done something about it?
Well, yeah. Hello, everyone. So, I'm from Philippines. Just to let everyone know, so there's a different kind of bias that we have here. I think achievement versus skill can be a bias too, because even here, even if how skilled you can be, without the achievement, like having the diploma and whatnot that you have graduated, it's hard for you to take a seat in an upper level. With a different kind of position. So those who have those enough skills to be in that position stayed below, and those who can be, I may sound rude, but in that process of where they are seated, they might be incompetent due to the skill level. They are hired first before those were skilled. So from maybe 3 to 4 years of having that kind of bias, what I'm doing right now is that because I stopped college and work, so right now I return to college to fix that kind of thing.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, you're right. I think I would call it more like a performance bias that happens mostly around also gender and certain times also around the position that we have, right? Now, interestingly, there was a question that came in yesterday in one of the talk shows, and I can pose that question to all of you. So why do you think mostly pubs have male bouncers? Is that because we don't have female bouncers? Anyone? Sheetal, you want to answer? Anmohan, Rajni?
I think it's
understand the question.
mainly because of the,
Not strong enough.
I can speak a little bit on it, if that's okay. Why do we have male bouncers, not female bouncers on the pubs and all that, right? That's the question, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
So, so I feel that definitely, I know we have strengths at various points, right? Female strength and male strength. So there are instances, definitely, I believe, with regards to the physical strength, definitely I feel males are higher on that compared to a female. So it's not just, I think you just don't need only to be mentally be more stronger. You need physical strength also, being a bouncer. So if needed, they want to throw the people out. That's not supposed to be in there. So I know that we are all, I know females are very mentally stronger than males, but physical strength is definitely their capability. That's what I feel personally.
Okay.
That probably is one of the reasons. I am not sure if any other reason for that.
Can I ask?
Yeah, I have one
again
point to
one more
add.
time.
Hello. Hi, sorry.
Rajni or Nandini, who's talking?
Sorry, this is Rajni. Can you pose your question one more time? I didn't understand the question.
Yeah. So my question was that why do we have male bouncers often in pubs and not female bouncers?
What do you mean by a bouncer?
Bouncer. Okay. So
I had the same question.
She's not from India, I guess. Yeah.
okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So a bouncer, okay, let it put it, let me kind of rephrase it. So bouncer is somebody like a security guard inside pubs. If there is a brawl, if there are people who are fighting for something, they get drunk and they misbehave with women, or otherwise also if they're creating a ruckus, there are people who are known as security guards, but they're not professionally security guards. They are people who are physically more aligned to get them out of the pub. So if there is a brawl, they should be able to pull them out and take them away from that scene, right? That's the idea. Or if they're troubling women, they are basically hired by pubs to ensure that these events don't happen, because pubs are typically places where people drink, dance, and have merry, right? So those are called bouncers.
I'll just add one more, Sandhya. I think you said it well. You said like physically fit. So I seen people heavy, tall, these guys who are mostly bouncers. So I think that's where the physical strength comes in place. Yeah.
Physical strength comes in. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I can add some point actually. So,
Yeah,
so before coming to the bouncer, I'll come to this security. Like if you look at the police, right? So you have a female police, and if you look at the security guards, now it's a great thing that security guard in India have female security guards, right? And so basically these are actually inclined to maintain the same gender. Like I mean to say, to manage the same gender. So a female police will manage the female cases, to handle a female candidate, whereas the female security guard is actually to handle the female this one, right? So there are two reasons why I think the bouncer is not a generic where we can actually put the female. So if there is a need to handle a female candidates in a bar or a pub, then I think there will not be like they can actually go ahead with the a female bouncer. But usually generally the term bouncer, it means that basically somebody who is misbehaving, right? And the candidate who is drunk and who is misbehaving, not in terms with the a general accommodation of a public, how to conduct in a public forum, is basically not even handled by their peers or other person, and that's the reason we need the bouncer. So person who is already misbehaving in a drunken state, a female will not be in a position to handle, right? And the second thing is he can do more harm to a female, so where we are actually risking a female in those terms, right? So that's the reason I feel that's not there. And then it's more of a like I mean to say, like they are almost like unconscious, like if they are behaving in this. So
I got your point. Cutting you short because I only have like half an hour. So I'm cutting you short. I got your point. What you're trying to say is if the person is unconscious and in that state, if he harms women, that could be a problem. Now, here is an insight. In Germany, there are pubs like these, and there are drinking places and lounges like this where there are female bouncers, and there are some places in India also where there are female bouncers, and people inside the pub today, and some of the places, I'm not naming the pubs, they do ask women to take out these drunk women outside, right? So they don't really rely on a bouncer because they believe that today we can handle those situations, right? And that those are pubs that really encourage that, because they have come out of this bias about physical strength or emotional strength, or because that's something that we really don't want to debate here, right? The debate is, it is something that we've been conditioned to think like that, right? So certain roles in our society become like that, and we think it's only meant for women. And I think for the longest time we never thought Uber will ever have a woman, but today, at least I say in Pune, Mumbai, and I see a lot of women drivers when I take Ola and Uber, which I think 5 years ago we didn't even think about it, right? That's the gender role not only gender, certain positions in life also, we have not been able to cross that boundary. And I'm saying we because collectively, we have not broken that stereotype or that bias. Now, when I talk, so Julian actually wanted and spoke about, how do you take that action? Now, the point here is not the bouncer. The point here is not the gender bias. The point is, if I notice it, do I step up and interrupt that bias? We all identify those stereotypes. We all see that, right? But do I really take that step of interrupting that bias? So there are times when a question like, when you're doing sales, a lot of women have faced this when they are in sales and finance. There are times when they are kind of undermined for their knowledge of selling and their knowledge of accountancy or finance, right? But it has also changed over a period of time. But there are still organizations who have that disparity, and it's got nothing to do with gender. It's just the knowledge disparity. Something like Phil said, there is this achievement versus skill. Sometimes your achievement is something, but you may have the skill, right? And it's just that you never got a chance to show that skill. That's a bias that a person has already developed. Now, but when we see that, the point is, do we interrupt the bias? Do we actually question it? That's the point that we want to discuss today, because it's been ages we've been talking about bias, and we've said, let's fight. Yeah,
Sandhya, I can give you an example if you
Yeah.
want. When I stepped up to, it's not anything to do with the gender bias.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing to do with the gender bias.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfectly
fine. Just my example is I work at Ford. So we have this was a while ago, kind of many years ago, where we some of the teams were working from home and some of them are not. So especially our team, the team that we are working with, our manager expects us to be there all the time. He wants to see us, basically.
Yeah.
I understand his point. He wants to see our beautiful faces. That's okay. But still, we want that flexibility of other teams who is having this work from home once a day. Oh, sorry, once a week. I'm sorry. I meant once a week flexibility. So it's good for us to be not to be at work that day and then taking care of things from home.
True.
And it saves the time, it saves the travel time, many things, right? So so people were reluctant to ask him. So there were about 20 people in my team. People were reluctant to ask him because they know that everybody is doing it. Other teams are doing it. So I stepped forward. I became the bad girl, but it's okay. I stepped forward and I said, his name is Rich. So this is what's been going on with other teams. And he asked her to tell me the names of who is that. I said, I'm not going to name anybody and get anybody into trouble, but this is what we are looking for. This because we need that. I'm not sure about the men, but especially the girls. We need that work from home once a week, so that we can get things moving at home as well as taking care of things and not wasting time driving. So he was reluctant. He didn't like that because me stepping forward, any of these things are not considered so good, right, for the team and all, because he has to do it for everybody, not just for me, because I did that in a meeting, not in a private space. So he said, okay. He liked the braveness of me bringing it up, and then he did check with his boss, and then his boss is actually awesome. So he said, yeah, he's fine. So he gave a go ahead. So everybody in the team appreciated.
Absolutely. And then that's stepping up, right? You stepped up against a policy. It was really nothing about a gender, but it was just about stepping up for
this is just different bias. It's nothing to do with the gender or anything.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy to hear that. So interrupting the biases is the first action we can take. If we see somebody else, like Sridhar said, I haven't felt it. But maybe if I see somebody going through that bias or experiencing it, I may have that option of stepping up and taking action for that person. That's more important today rather than we discussing about the biases, right? Now, I can see Naved and Manmohan also here. Manmohan, do you want to talk about any bias that you faced at workplace? And I'll bring in an example later. But anything that you want to talk about, any bias that you faced personally or professionally as well at workplace?
Hi, Sandhya. Yeah, thank you for asking me the question. Yes, there are a lot of bias every day or every week or every year since you go to education. I'm being also me being also South Indian, staying in Central India, and I've worked in different parts of India and abroad. A lot of different kind of bias and discrimination do comes in, and that is the first stage of any kind of interaction, because there is a kind of a competency test which happens, whether it's your knowledge, whether it's your skills, whether it's your whatever you have, even if you have a very good bike or very good car, anything, that there are a lot of biases. So we cannot ignore that. We have to live with it. We have to adjust with it. We have to know. We have to think ways how we can overcome this. We have to mend and adjust with our relationship, and I have mastered it. That's what I can say.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what is one strategy that you would want to share with us? At least share that with us here in the group then.
I will like to agree to disagree on whatever anybody says. Like for gender bias, you said certain like bouncers. There are certain roles, because I was into oil and gas also earlier. So certain roles in oil and gas does not permit female to do that job. For example, in the rig, or if you go underground in the mines. But these days things are changing. Weatherford and Schlumberger, many other organizations are hiring women. Even in India, border security force and other RP positions are being taken up by the women. So these are some biases which were there since ages, since before even I was born. So, but yes, there are certain jobs which are risky for. I think that's what the policymakers might have thought probably when they were planning these job roles, and so these are some job roles wherein they do not allow female to enter in that particular blasting zone or mining zone or something like that, radioactive zones. Yeah. So, but I it's fine as long as I like my objective, because I've been raised among sisters, mothers, and my granny, everybody. So I don't feel a difference between a male and female. It's just a person for me, and so that's what I look at. And how I mastered the discrimination or a bias is I try to understand what's the disagreement, and I try to agree with it.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of 50% agree with what you're saying. It helps by agreeing or disagreeing to agree, or agreeing to disagree. Either ways, I would look at it both the sides. But one thing that I would talk about is, there's something we call the ladder of inference, right? I don't know how many of you have actually gone through that. So ladder of inference basically talks about how do we make assumptions about certain facts, or how do we start building up that belief system. Now, the important point to notice while we build up this belief system is to also look at what is the sample data we're looking at. Sometimes we just look at two people and say, hey, you know what? That man was very emotional, and I've not seen men being emotional. I've just looked at 2-3 examples, and I've made my assumptions, and from my assumptions, I've made my belief system. Whenever we get into such kind of thought process, it's a good idea to step back and look at, is there enough sample data for me to talk even about it, right? And maybe we don't have. So that's how most of the belief systems were made, and that is how it has continued over ages. Now, what we can do here, like Manmohan, you said rightly that sometimes I may want to just disagree and say, okay, fine. You want to go ahead and do mining, go ahead and do it, prove it, correct? And if that's something that they go ahead and do it, there is no way we have any sample data to prove that women who've gone for mining have not had the resilience as equal as a man. There is no data. There is no data that brings in a bouncer in Germany versus a bouncer in man saying they were not equal. There is no data to prove us that, right? But what we need to do right now is, when we talk about taking actions, the first thing that we can do, if we notice it or if we are experiencing, we can always ask the person, do you want me to give a chance? First. Second, I am ready to take that. Why do you feel that? Now, there was one thing while I'm asking most of you, there's some very recent case in one of my consulting projects which happened. This man wanted to leave the organization just because he was really stressed with the kind of work that was going on. And nobody I think in the last 10 years had ever taken a resignation from that sales driven organization because he wanted to have rest for himself. He said, I want to now lead a mindful life. His resignation exactly said this. I want to lead a more mindful life, and I think this is too stressful for me, and I want to take a break, or I want to leave this organization. There was hue and cry around it. Consultants like us were pulled in, and there were discussions because he was at a very high position. And the discussions, interestingly, was nothing around male, female. The discussion is how is he stressful? It's okay for him. Why does he need to stress? He can easily go at 6 o'clock. The wife is there to take care of the off. Why is he even talking about it? The fact that mindfulness, it could be a reason of resignation, was in question at that point of time. You see the bias that we're talking about, right? Here, the bias is not even man, women, not even position, not even the money, nothing. The bias was a person cannot take a break because if he's stressed and if he talks about living a mindful life, it's his choice. He wanted to just step down from that 14 hours of work and decided to take a break, and it's absolutely fine. Correct? But we had to step in to bring that decision back to the management, saying what is wrong in him saying that. You have to relieve him. He's stressed. God forbid he actually has some health issues while he's serving his notice period. You can't do anything about it. You have to adjust with the notice period. He's too stressed right now to even process that information. But the discussion was not around anything else but why is he leaving just for mindfulness? Who does that? He can go and do yoga. We've never asked him to take a days off and go and do yoga. Does it really work like that? Do you do one day yoga and you're fit enough to carry on the next 14, 15 hours for months together? No, that doesn't happen like that, right? So that's exactly what we need to do right now. We need to start interrupting the biases by asking the right question, not really countering it there, because people who do not have the judgment may not even understand it. You can always counter back. You can always question back. You can always take actions and prove it that this is why don't you give me a chance? Let me just take it up and show it to you. You give me a chance and let me do it. Why do you think that? These are counter questions that you can bring in and then prove your, whatever skill set, like Phil said about skill set and achievement. That's how you prove it. Otherwise, there are other ways of interrupting the biases, actually getting into a disagreement, which really does not, in my sense, I don't think that really makes a sense there. Right? Yeah, Riti, you had a question?
No, I just wanted to pitch in here. I just wanted to pitch in here when we are talking about the so-called terminologies of biases or, for me, stereotypes, discrimination, any of these terminologies you want to use, right? I personally believe there is an inception to it, right? So when I talk about a bias of my parents coming in, not coming post 10 o'clock, and my brother being allowed in India to come post 10 in the night, right? Those kinds of biases have so much of influence on a particular individual, right? Yeah. So I personally believe it's something to do with two things, which is change the mindset. And it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult to change the mindset, right? It's very difficult to change the status quo, right? So that's what is something when Manmohan said that it was okay agreeing to disagree, okay? I said, where do we put our foot down, right? Where do we say that? So many times in my career path, I've been told, Riti, you're too aggressive as a facilitator, right? And that's quite acceptable for a lot of men who have been around, right? So whether you talk about that as stereotype, I think so. The existence is definitely there, right? Yeah. I believe the existence is there. Lastly,
sorry.
Lastly, I think so. When we are expected to do certain things the way it has to go, right? The expectations is too much from us as individual, right? So I think so. Madhvi was talking about some, some discussion in her office, her organization. I think so. The best thing is what she did was do what you got to do, right? In terms of she decided she wanted to do it, right? She wanted to be a straightforward individual. Yeah, she wanted to
you have to interrupt it. There is no other way you can go about it, right? So even in this case of mindfulness, and I'll talk about many other where men have faced this, right? In this case, and I'll also talk about one of the recent posh cases where it was so difficult to actually identify the real criminal, real person, sorry, the real victim. Now, this mindfulness, it took us 2 coaches to sit there and question the person who had to sign that resignation. He had n number of, he or she, there were 2 people who had many reasons of why this person should not be given a notice period. And my point to him is, he is stressed right now. Why can't you see that stress? It's simple, right? Now, that interrupting the bias took us 4 hours. And for some people, it may have taken 4 years to prove that, right? But the point we wanted to make that is mindfulness is important and mental health is important. Come what may, you have to do it. You can't just do workshops about it. You have to ensure that you start implementing and start taking actions. And he was very clear. I loved the resignation letter. Had I, if I had that opportunity, I would have put it on social media to say people are willing to step up for their mental health. Let them do that. If they are, it's great that they're stepping up for their mental health, and please allow them to take that decision and allow them to, take those steps if they want to. Here we are at one place, we have this whole, hoo-halla about the mental health, that we should be careful of this, we should be doing that. But then when people step up and they want to take actions for their mental health, we're not supportive of them. We're not supportive of them. So that's something that we notice and in professions like, the kind of professions that Rithi and I are in. If we talk about it, I don't know, Rithi, if you faced it as a coach. I remember I walking up to one of the counselors and I said, I think I should just go through one counseling session. She said, why do you need it? The first question she asked me is, why do you need it? Come on, I'm a coach, but I'm a human being as well. I may also need some counseling, right? But that's how the biases have to be broken. So I just asked her the same question. So I said, does that mean you've never gone through counseling sessions for yourself? So she said, yeah, I do. So that's how we interrupt the bias. It's not really disagreement or getting into a conflict, but you actually question the bias and see if that person can come back with a logical answer. Mostly they cannot, because like I said, there is no sample data for her to prove that coaches don't need counselors or vice versa. Correct. That's exactly what I wanted to bring about. Julian, you have any other questions you can ask me? I wanted to really, we've spoken about biases and I've been speaking about biases for years and talking about it. But my only point now is that we have to step up and start taking actions. If we're not experiencing it firsthand, if we see somebody experiencing it, I think it's time as human beings, now that we are aware of these stereotypes and discrimination, we should step up and question it. At least question it. That's the first action, like Rithi said, what do you do about it? At least question it, interrupt it. Any thoughts, Sheetal? Anything that you want to add? Geeta, you've been quiet. Naved, Nandita.
I did, Sandhya. So one of the things I was remembering is that, or from listening to you, is that, I feel like we all have tunnel vision based on our conditioning, our brought up culture, exposure, everything.
Yeah, true.
And to actually accept it, like there is, even if Sandhya and Rithi are coaches and have talked about this, there could still be some biases in you that's inherent just because you're existing. Same for me. And the less exposed I am, the more my biases would be, or the narrow my tunnel would be. So when I experience a bias, I kind of do agree partly with Manmohan when he said, I agree to disagree, because there was an area for Madhvi to step up and talk. There's sometimes it's not your place, sometimes it's your place. I'm not talking about blatant unfairness happening. There are some things, especially inside family. How many of us have biases we face inside the family itself? It's a choice we have to make, whether you choose to be right or you choose to be kind. And is the bias going to kill somebody or, submerge someone so bad? So that's a choice we're always making. And so to me, I accept that your bias is coming from your tunnel vision. And if it's not really I mean, it's like a tightrope walk. You know, you make a choice. Do you stop it now, or are you gonna be known as an aggressive person? You're always gonna be attacking. So in my past, I was seen as an activist. I was seen as a green police or Miss Gandhi coming in. So the morals or the go green people in the schools, they're like, oh, Sheetal's coming. But I wanted to understand as I evolve in life, I wanted to understand what message do I want them to have? How do I want them to be inspired? Oh, here comes Miss Right, or here comes Miss Culture, or here comes someone who can connect with me, and then we can move towards the light together. Not that I know better, but that's some kind of I feel like it's part of enlightenment for all of us to realize that yes, I might know a lot more about a topic than others talking right now, but I let them have their field there too, so that, and same, hopefully, other people are doing with me. So that's one of the takeaway thoughts that I had. And the other thing is that with the mining example, we are equal, but we are not equal too. So how do we do this equality business while respecting the fact that the human woman body has more estrogen and has other things and is going to give birth to a future leader? And so they teach here in high school that, the drinking thing, boys, girls, they all want to be equal. They all want to go out and have fun. They all want to go and have partners. But what happens to a woman's body when she does the same thing? And they talk about it. Same amount of alcohol, if a girl has, she feels it a lot more, it seems. The embryo gets affected. And when it's time for them to mature and have a kid, they've kind of did something with the fertility or something. I have no idea. But, so if we go compete in that aspect in a wrong way with the men, eating pizzas and burgers and all that stuff, right? It affects everybody's health, but our bodies are also, they give a baby. So what kind of a health to the baby? So that kind of responsibility, I feel like we have to have with the equality in mind.
Correct. I think the whole correction that needs to be made, Sheetal, is in understanding the equality, right? I think a lot of people have this myth that the equality was never about physical equality. The equality was always about the socio-economic, political equality and the rights. It was always about that. The physically, I think everybody knows how physically we are different because we are creators in a way. That's how we've been made. So there are a few things in our body which will be, of course, different by, and also different with every gender identity. I'm not even saying one man, women, the different gender identities. So physical attributes is never the space where we can look for equality. Having said that, if mining requires a particular skill set and the skill set is there with me, then I may want to go ahead and take it up. If my physical body allows us something which is up to me, right? But then the rest, in terms of the package, in terms of any other skill set, in terms of any other support that a man gets, I should be able to get that. That's the equality that we're looking at when we talk about gender equality. But I'm generically talking about small biases that exist. And like you said, rightly, we become myopic with those belief systems because that's something that we've been seeing it for a while, right? Sometimes people prefer to choose peace rather than getting into it because they feel it's too toxic to get into that conversation, right? And it's fair enough. But when it starts happening and replicating in a way where it becomes a prejudice against a section, that's when the warning is, right? And that's exactly what's happened. So over a period of time, there were sections who chose peace and who chose to disagree or agree. And now it has reached a stage where the sample size has become bigger and hence the more need for interruption and hence more need of questioning. That's exactly how it happens. So even the smallest bias, right? That's how it kind of multiplies and then it reaches to that level where the discrimination is against the whole society altogether or whole section altogether. That's exactly what happens. Thank you. But Sheetal, I loved your idea of how you prefer to choose peace vis-a-vis also working towards whatever you're looking at, right? The dream that you have or your purpose of what you're looking at. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Bias and
okay, if I can pitch in, Sheetal, it is something to do with, to break these biases, you actually need a lot of determination. Seriously, because I'm brought up in India and I'm a North Indian, and I've seen so many every day, so many biases in terms of gender biases, especially. Probably I have realized that I had to be very determined to convince my parents, to convince people around me. And equally, I needed perseverance, right, to understand how things can be taken ahead. So it's not a one-time thing. It's kind of a you have to just go ahead and try to understand what are these biases. Are they bothering your day-to-day work? Are they bothering you in your profession? And it has bothered me in my personal and professional life. So that's why I think so. I have to answer it, kinds, that moment. Thank you.
Navid, you had a question? I think you raised your hands.
Not a question, but a comment. Thank you for letting me talk about it. It's great discussion. Very valid points everybody's raising. So from what I understood regarding bias, I've been talking about it at my organization level for quite some time. There are two types of barriers. I mean, biases are nothing but, in my opinion, they are barriers. One is we develop one type of a barrier is that we develop a superiority complex for ourselves. We think we are superior from with others. Like, for example, men might think that they are superior to women, or people of certain color think they might be superior to people of certain other colors. So those kind of things. And another thing is that inferiority barrier that we develop. We think that we are inferior to others. I mean, this is whether we, how it developed, it could be many reasons. One of the reasons could be that it's our culture. I'm from India, like most of you. So we are, our culture is to respect elders. And when we are school, we were taught that regarding our teachers, Tvameva Mata cha, Tvameva Pita cha, that kind of a thing. The teacher is our parents, they're like God. So we try to respect, we should not answer back to the teachers. So that kind of mindset we have. And when we become professionals, we have that mindset towards our superiors, the managers or whatever it is, that we don't answer back to them. That and also we certain like people coming from certain background, they think that, hey, people of certain color, if I may take an example, white men are superior, so we should not. I don't know what they think about it. I mean, that kind of a biases we have in the mind. So this negative bias that we have, first we have to take it out from our minds. Like, okay, I'm not inferior to anyone. We cannot control others' mind, but first of all, we can control our own mind, our own thinking. We have to come out of that particular shell, and we should not feel inferior to anyone. That we have to make sure. And second one, as I said, we cannot control others, but what we can do is make ourselves so precious. So, develop our skills or whatever it is. People cannot ignore us. They just, I mean, it doesn't matter what they think about who I am, where I'm from, what my religion is, what my gender is, what my skin color is. If I become that important, they have to accept me. There is no way for them to ignore me. They cannot ignore me. I'll give an example of Jackie Robinson. He's the first black baseball player. When he came into the league, the fans and the people started hating him. But he became such a great player. There was no way the teams can ignore him. Every team wanted him to play for them. So that's how we have to. Obviously, it's not simple. But when we see that kind of biases, the only thing we can do is make ourselves to that point where people cannot ignore us. One share of a pro poet, he said that खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि खुदा हर तकदीर से पहले खुद बंदे से पूछे कि बता तेरी रजा क्या है. In English means before make yourself so precious, so high that even God, before deciding what to give you, ask you, tell me what you want. So we have to reach that stage.
Wow, Navid, it's wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I think, yeah, valid point. One thing that you spoke about, I really loved about it, Navid, is the inner mindset is also something. Though I'm saying that, it's easy to question. And like Rithi said, it does not happen overnight. It happens over a conscious decision that you make that, okay, like I am not comfortable with it, whatever the bias or the barrier is, and it's not helping me. So do I want to take an action against it? And that's a conscious decision that one makes. And it's not easy to make that decision. And like you said, Navid, it's also about looking at our inner bias. Sometimes we have created that barrier, thinking that one is an imposter syndrome that happens with most of us, and the second is that am I good enough for this talk? Do I know enough? Am I somebody who should be talking about it? Yeah, so that's also most of the time the inferiority complex that steps in. So good point, Navid. Julian, we can have Rithi. I think Rithi has already been waiting for a while and we've taken the discussion too long. Rithi, you could actually take over from here.
I'm absolutely good. We are evolving and involving people. So that's absolutely fine, right? Yeah. So I think so. Would you like to say, or you can pitch in any time? Okay.
I would pitch in any time. I would love to hear from you as well.
Sure. So I know this community, and great to see you all back after a year, kinds. Okay. So I want to read certain lines to you, okay, just from myself. And I received a message yesterday. It says, it's a kind of a paradox, which says, breaking the stereotype of Women's Day. I'll just read you maybe just 2 paragraphs, which is very interesting. Stop congratulating women for being the secret behind the successful men. Start saluting them for being successful. Stop saying the mother is sacred for all the sacrifices she makes. Try to reduce those sacrifices. Stop telling women they are beautiful. Try telling them it's not important to be beautiful, right? And many more. This is so interesting for me to read it, okay? And I have been doing a lot of talks on the Women's Day, most of the time where I have a problem, the client doesn't have a problem. So when they invite me, they say, you have to come for the Women's Day talk. You have to give a pep talk, motivate the women in an organization, okay, for that just one day. Take some time, 2 hours, 3 hours, or a day's time, right? And I say, is it only women or both or kinds? And that's the worst thing which I have been facing for these years, doing these kinds of pep talks. I always insist that it has to be an organization. Everybody, every person in the team has to be part of a celebration. So for me, Women's Day is all about celebrating. And a lot of my friends just tell me, isn't it overhyped? Isn't it too much that you guys are all over celebrating it? And an organization, I was doing a Women's Day celebration talk. The L&D team got the ladies manicure, pedicure. They just dug them up for a catwalk, blah, 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 right? So I would personally believe that it is a moment. And I'm very influenced with what Indra Nooyi said yesterday. It was very interesting on her part to say that she gave a similar speech in 2007. And when she's giving in 2022, there hasn't been much change. What's going on, right? What's going on? Are we seriously thinking about everybody around? It's not about men. It's all about that what has changed. So when I watch, if you have heard about Jacinda Ardern, have you? Have you? No responses. You can Google it right away.
New Zealand Prime Minister.
Right. And I want you guys to watch her, right? And it has been so interesting to watch her when she was disturbed during an official conversation, a chat, and the kid was bothering her during an official chat. She just said, I'll take a moment. And that gives me, so much of inspiration that, can I do something like that? Somebody has pressed the bell. During my training program or facilitation, can I stop there and just get out of those biases that I have to manage whom, I have to manage everything on a virtual platform? So these kinds of stories probably have made me change the thought process, change the status quo, right? And I have seen a lot of biases around, and I've seen it with my male friends also. So I personally believe we cannot get out of it, but we have to have 2-3, key rule book, or probably certain things which would be a kind of a process that this is what I have to do if there is some bias which stops me on my way in my personal or professional life. So somebody if questions my gender, discriminates me in my professional world, what do? I give that back with my performance.
That's what I do.
Right? So probably certain things, I think so we all have to find an alternate to keeping these role models in mind. Okay. We need to get more women on the board. We need to get them more on the leadership roles. And that's what way we can fight those bias. A lot of double standards on aggressiveness, independence, right? So can we just put our foot down and understand it's not about discrimination against men, guys. We have too many men. Manmohan is trying to handle this, right? I think that we all have faced it, right? Men are colorblind. Who says it, right? Men cannot cry. Oh my God, right? Men cannot be emotional. So it's more to do with being inclusive. Hope you agree on what I said. Sheetal, you want to say something?
Actually, it is very thought-provoking, whatever you're sharing, especially the initial lines that you've read. We're used to all that stuff. In my mind, I feel like, why can't we be okay with the both? Why can't we be okay with the femininity that's associated with motherhood and sacrifices and beauty and softness, as well as femininity that may even can be very masculine in one of the aspects, like the traits that are typically stereotypical masculine. Why can't we be okay with both? Because in our culture, especially in India, we've even seen, I don't know what they're called, but they come in between the traffic. They are not transgender.
Yeah.
We even though practically I don't know what's happening, I'm sure it's not fair, but in the culture aspect, theoretically, they also have a very good respectful role. So why can't we aspect the whole rainbow of, when I say rainbow, I mean it more as in like a woman can be anything, a man can be anything, which is what you're coming across with, right?
Profound.
Yeah.
Because
actually,
there's an interesting article yesterday in the newspaper Times of India in India from Mumbai. Okay, and it spoke about there's a particular area, Kamatipura. Okay, if you want to inquire and you have a pen, you can write it. Okay. It is where these majorly this transgender stay, and for them to get a recognition, get a respectful life is so difficult. We're talking about 21st century. So do we seriously understand what's going in their mind? Do we really understand what they go through, right, in that kind of business? I think so. It's more to do with we have to reject those chauvinist or probably that racist attitudes in my, thought process, not being gender biased. Okay.
Yeah, and also from what I heard from Naveed, it was all about work on yourself, right? When you said show it with performance, that performance is our behavior, our character, and many times, war is not the answer, and for people, when you question them in their face, you actually attack their ego. Like they lose the logic of even seeing your point your way, or to see outside their box. So I feel like, in the past when I brought about changes in the school system, it was not to say you're doing wrong. I question you and I'm going to disrupt what you're doing. Like I'm aware of that. All of us carry a certain ego, some more, some less. But to be a friend, as in like, we both have something in common, find that common background with the person, with the school, with anything I'm working with, and then, like I said, go towards the light, so that if it's a child, you make it play and then it's recycle. If it's a teacher, I'm not going to burden you, but how about we do this as part of a class activity, so that it's like a win-win. So to me, that's where it comes to agreeing to disagree to start with, like active acceptance of where you are, and then with the common connection, we move towards, which for me, number one is introspection. How can I make a difference in another person? Is I have to first introspect, make myself a better person, work on myself, and then approach. I know it's not going to be that all the time, because we have to do it parallelly. Because what if I'm end of my life, I'll be working on myself.
So you're talking about a world that is, I think so, whatever you spoke relates to a world which is more diverse, yet inclusive, yet equitable, right? If I'm putting in terminologies.
Yes.
Talking about a lot of inclusion, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
To accept, even if like many people have grandparents who could be very biased, I would be very nice to our, maids or something by bringing them educational stuff. I would hear some comments. I was like, Mama, but I have to still accept Mama, right? That she's coming from a certain background.
Sure.
So it's not like I would be like fighting with her and saying, you know what, women empowerment, this is not the way to do it. Like I can't go that approach is war, and war is never the answer. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not about fighting and just finding a solution, as you said, with a war, but probably understand. That's why I said when Sandhya was talking, what is this inception of that particular stereotype, right? Where did you got that? Where has it come from? Your some belief system? You're born and brought up in some way. Has there been an influence from your friend circle, from your colleagues? Where is this influence coming from, right?
Exactly.
Right. And at times when in my, when I train people on interviewing skills, at time when I tell ladies, okay, when you're going for an interview or a meeting, do you really need the sindoor and the bindi, right? If you understand, right? Hope you understand this terminology.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they said that, is there any problem in it? I said, no problem in it at all. And then there is a kind of a debate which starts in a kind of a thought process, right? So they say, but Riti, what is the problem in it, right? And I always say, yeah, just tell me what is the problem, right? If you don't put it, what is the problem? So it's more to do with introspecting about whether it's really a bias or you really do it for yourself and you really feel, do you want it, right, yourself? Individually, does that nurture your personality? Is that you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dynamic evolution. I remember when I was at Ford World Headquarters we have here in Michigan, Dearborn, and I was pregnant first time, and so I didn't know what to wear as I was still going to work. And when I look at maternity clothes, I didn't like them at all. They just make the tummy just jumped out. And then somehow I looked up Ford business casual, what is allowed, and in Ford India they allowed churidar and sari. So I started wearing churidars. They expand. You can just have to loosen up, and they were colorful. So because they were still in line with the business casual on the website, I didn't check with my team lead or my manager or supervisor or anybody. I just checked and then I started wearing. They couldn't tell me and I didn't know either, but when it came to my performance review after 1 year, they said I needed to be more professional. I didn't understand what it was because I was, a couple of my websites that I worked on was even announced in the department meeting with 500 people. There was recognition, there was more stuff happening. And then the lady supervisor, who's Caucasian, told me, you were not dressing properly. But I said that was in Ford India website, and Ford India means it's okay here, right? Because I didn't want to go, and they're crazy expensive to buy maternity clothes, and just for what, few months, and then what do you do after that? Plus, it's not comfortable. They're all stretching like, so I didn't know what to do at that time. I just let
Very
it go.
interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting, anecdote, because we all go through this.
Yeah.
What about men?
See, for me, what you were talking, certain things about men also, we expect men to be very strong person. And then if we see him as a nourishing person or a submissive person, we will say that he's not a man. So there are so many biased things about men too. So I feel like not only that, I heard a lot of times the word used a lot, what is that, black sheep of the family. And if the girl or anybody is the darker color or they were not fitting to the cookie cutter of the family, I heard those terms too. So what I felt this thing is, what Naveed said is, you have to prove to yourself. First, you have to love yourself and you have to prove to yourself. And always not a perfect life or a, what do you call, like a very value life. No, values in the life, you first incorporate those values to yourself. That's what I feel. And the gender, whatever, everything, every gender has issues, every place, everything has issues too. But it is what you make the mature decisions is most important thing for me.
Absolutely, Sadha. And I think so that's why we have to listen and reflect most of the time. Whether it is any prejudices also we have against people or for people. I think so. How many times do we communicate and just are audible in addressing those aspects to it? Sri Rekha, you want to speak up something? You have been waiting and watching all of us for so long.
So I've it's been a very interesting discussion, the way Sheetalji has mentioned and what Naveedji has spoken about. Amazing points all of you have put across. I feel, I tend to agree mostly with Sheetalji here. She is absolutely right in the sense that, because that's what I also think. There are biases, they're always there, they've been there. It's how you come across it, you manage it yourself. And yeah, sometimes it's easier to make peace than fight with people. It's because you're living in a society. How long will you keep fighting? You can keep fighting till the end, that's fine. If there is a settlement in view, it's easier to fight and get it done with. But then when you see there are not many things that are going to change fast, right? You wait it out. You go one-on-one with people, try to make them understand what is your thought process, what is it that they are coming from, probably make them understand. Then who knows, slowly it will change. And if Indra Nooyi has said that it hasn't changed much from 2007 to 2022, true, that is the case. But then there is certain amount of change as well. We have to accept that as well. 2007, somebody has mentioned about, BSF not having women in their ranks. Now BSF has women in their ranks, and that too at frontline posts. Similarly, pilots, fighter pilots, women are breaking certain barriers. But the change is slow. It's not that, let me put it this way. It's taken us such a long time to even recognize this. The change is not going to come like this. The change is not going to come like, in a jiffy. It will take certain amount of time to bring about that change. It's great that people are talking about this. But then we need to be patient as well. Everything can't be done overnight. Everything has a process. We need to accept that as well and make peace. And certainly, as Navid has mentioned, we need to bring about that change. If we are confident in our skin, right, we can talk to people. Now if we are not confident ourselves about what we want, what is the kind of change that we want to see in our lives, we'll not be in a position to mention that to others as well. So that's what I think.
Absolutely. And I think so that's what we were here for, Sandhya and I think so. You all know about it, and there has been some interesting news and a most current topic which was there 2 months back about hijab in India, right? Okay. I may not like to touch upon it right now because of few reasons, but I think so when you read about it, you really are shaken how it gets into a political issue, right? So still those small things are also part of biases and stereotypes which we have, right? And how do we overcome it? And that's why we say, when I said, when Julian asked me that what do you want to name your module or a topic, what you want to talk about, I said there has to be a moment, right? When Indra Nui says there has been not major change, of course, Sri Rekha, there has been change. I appreciate your inputs on the BSF. I appreciate your input on the fighter pilots, right? But I think so we all have to be heard when we talk about these biases. Somebody has to hear it out, right? So at our own homes, somebody has to hear it out, and probably we have to challenge that mindset. Can we change it? Can we bring change in the mindsets of the people around us, right? But we are still not choosing to challenge. That's what we are thinking, right, Sandhya? Yeah, please, Sandhya. Sandhya, you are on mute.
Phil had a question, but before Phil, I take your question, I just wanted to add to that. So, the point here is that how do we challenge it? It's not fight, it's just the terminology. So the moment you say fight, it becomes like a war. It sounds like a war. The point here is not fighting it. The point here is challenging it in a way which is okay with you. You know your people, right? Who are around you in your office. You know how to talk to them. Sometimes you can find common ground, like Sheetal said. But by finding the common ground also, what you're subtly doing is challenging the thought process of your friend, or challenging the thought process of your spouse or your partner, right? There are small changes that, and the change in BSF, or I don't know if anybody remembers the actual story, how that first inception into BSF happened. Right? It didn't happen overnight. It was years of applications that went. There was years of, what do you call it, which is a common platform where women kept signing, and that's when actually the BSF happened. So somebody had to challenge that thought. They didn't have to come out with a movement or a candle march. It was just a subtle request for change, a subtle request for checking the decision of the person. That's exactly what we need to do. And it's across all the platforms. Any bias, even if you see a bias in the interview, it's a good idea to check if they're coming from a thought process and why are they saying what they're saying. That's the only thing that you need to do, right? And that is the first thing that we can do. The ripple effect may be for 10 years, right? It may take 10 years to actually show up that result, but the at least if we can step up and at least do that, at least challenge. It's not about fighting it, or it's not even about coming out in a movement and, really marching and talking about it. It's not going to make anything. We've seen that in the Nirbhaya case in India. That's not what matters. What matters is the mindset behind it, correct? So that's exactly what I wanted to change throughout, like the talks that we had. I have nothing against gender bias because I know we've spoken enough, and people in both the sections, men have proven that bias differently, and women also, and the same is for the non-binary gender identities. They have stepped up and they've spoken for themselves. They didn't have to come out with a march. It was small movements by the LGBT community that took them to where they are right now. But it's still a long way to go. I have been part of so many DNI inclusion awards and conferences in India. A long way to go. Really a long way to go. But still, people like Harsh Iyer are taking small steps, and they have come into the mainstream. They've come up and taken HR positions because they had the audacity to challenge. Harsh, I don't think ever fought it. He was never fighting it. He was subtly bringing in small changes, and that small changes has brought that inclusion in the Indian industry, at least in Indian context, where people are hiring transgenders or non-binary gender identities as well, right? That's just
absolutely. I think, Chandya, it is all to do with you make mistakes, but you still choose to challenge, right? You still make mistakes. Lastly, I would like to share with you that most of the time when there used to be a requirement for a trainer or a speaker, for an outstation, which is far off from the place I'm located in, it was always that the requirement would always say male trainers, right? To go to a far off place and all. And I would always question that. Can't I travel? Can't I travel in the night? Can't I go and stay in that remote village? I was working for Women's World Bank, and I still remember that I had to go to these small villages and stay there. But then I think so sometimes you have to understand, do you want to challenge, or do you want to be audible and tell people, yes, I can also do it, or I would do it?
Yeah, and I something very interesting just came up, and it's years ago. I think men had started coming into salons, and I had this bias, and I'm so guilty of it today. I walked into the salon, and there was my favorite, whoever, the lady who used to do my eyebrows wasn't there, so I kept waiting, and 5 minutes in my wait, one of this guy comes in, and he's also one of the persons working there. He says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I need water." He said, "Yeah, but I can get you coffee as well. But do you want me to do your eyebrows?" My instant reaction was no. Instant reaction was no. And I'm talking about biases here, right? But I felt, I waited there, and he asked me, "Do you want to give it a try? If it doesn't work, you may think about it later on, but are you willing to give that?" And that was that moment, it was just that question. He didn't challenge me. He subtly offered. He just changed my mindset by that question, right? That even in a salon, I can take a service of a man, and he or she, whoever it was, he still has the capability of doing what anyone can. Correct. But that's something that I had, and I don't know where it stemmed up from. I have no idea, but I really appreciate that guy who questioned it at that moment. Had he not, I think for years, walking into a salon, I would have always expected service from a woman or a girl. Correct. But that changed for me that day. So that's exactly what we need to bring about as a change. And I think that's exactly what you and I have been talking about. Phil, sorry, you had a question. We got really swayed away by the entire topic, but you had a question. You raised your hands.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, I have a little stress here, being overpowered by women. Thank you, Manmohan, for joining me in video. But yeah, I have to butt in because with the discussion so great that we do not feel that it's been more than 20 minutes or so past the actual session. So yeah, it's I hate to cut it out. I was just really great, having a great time going with the discussion and changing the ideas and having all the thoughts that we have here. But yeah, we can wrap it up for additional spills, and then we can close the session if that's all right.
Hey, I have just one point to make. It's a great enlightening conversation. A lot of new things that I learned, and I'm still processing. So I feel whether it is a man or a woman, I feel there is some trait that probably is causing a lot of these anomalies. So what I mean to say is the same man who held some the same men who held some bias, they are going to repeat similar acts even in their the world of men as well. So I just feel that there are human traits which need to be addressed at a higher level to really bring the real inclusivity, and of course there should be balance as well based on the context. So yeah, in the interest of the time, I just want to add that point, but definitely an interesting topic, and we should probably have these intellectual stimulating conversations. Thank you all for the wonderful discussion.
Thank you, Srini. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Julian. I think she's already left the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you, people.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, night, afternoon, morning, whichever time zone you are in.
Happy Women's Day month to all of you.
Yes. Thank you, Riti. Thank you, Sandhya. Thank you, everyone. See you again next Wednesday, the same time. So that's 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time. So I hate to say goodbye, but see you around. Thank you so much. Take care, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Riti and Sandhya.
You're most welcome to India. All of you most welcome to India. Yeah.
We'd love to. We can connect. Yes, definitely.
Sure. We can connect on the social media and we can touch base. And most welcome to all of you to be coming to Bombay. Yeah.
You guys are there on Twitter or some place or some social
LinkedIn. I'm there on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, okay.
I can share.
I have to be all over. Thank you.
Okay.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay. Take care. All.
From India. Yeah.
Bye.